Welcome to Hilarious Helmet History, the show where today's cultural historical misconceptions are even sillier than my helmet. 300 presents us with Sparta as the defenders of Western civilization, outnumbered by a galaxy of despotic Persian aliens. Its Spartans are basically the men in black, but for freedom, out to save democracy from Persia's wacky oriental army of combat rhinos, the cave troll from Lord of the Rings, and a harem of quadriplegic female sex slaves. Still, you're smart. You understand that that troglodyte isn't a realistic human from ancient Iran. You understand artistic choices. But Frank Miller and Zack Snyder's Tom of Holland Fest movie doesn't just exaggerate history, it gets it backwards. They kept telling you ancient Spartans fought for
our lands, for our families, for our freedom.
But the reality was 2 out of 3. If anybody fighting at Thermopylae represented freedom, it was Persia. And this bit of anti-Persian trash talk, coming from a Spartan,
run along and tell your Xerxes he faces free men here, not slaves,
would have been awfully confusing to a Persian. The Achaemenid Persian Empire, the one that invaded Greece twice, was the largest empire the world had ever seen. And other than a few long-term POWs, they built that Persian Empire without slaves. They generally banned owning other people. Whereas, as a Spartan soldier, Muscles McGee would have personally owned a bunch of slaves. Spartan society was a rigid caste system. The male Spartan citizens at the top of the Spanakopita were legally required to be full-time soldiers. Since stuff like farming needed to happen, that economically required Sparta's soldier men to hold slaves. Slaves, they were legally required to beat. Persia's military had full-time soldiers too, but Persia wasn't psycho enough to force every adult male into their army. Instead, they recruited a military from across their empire, paid for it with tax dollars, and ran it with a federal government. That sounds awfully modern for happening 2,500 years ago. And the more you look at ancient Persia, the more Western they seem. Their empire's founder, Cyrus II, was a multiculturalist. He didn't force his religion on the many territories he conquered. His actions even helped free the Jewish tribes in captivity in Babylon so they could go build a new temple in Jerusalem. That tolerance was revolutionary for its time because Persia's imperial predecessors, the Assyrians and the Chaldeans, tended to rule that region by skinning and impaling people. But if you weren't quite muscular enough of a baby, Spartans enslaved you, or you. And Persian kings like Darius I, who the 300 movies use as tyrannical props, sorry Darius, were leaders who improved their dominions, building roads, refining bureaucracies, standardizing currency, and pioneering lots of good government work. Heck, while the Greeks and Sparta were busy oiling each other's abs, and don't worry, I've seen the sequel to 300, because I use my time well. I know it argues creepy, crazy Sparta still saved Western civilization because they fought for
a free Greece, an Athenian experiment called democracy.
Of course, Athens was a democracy where voting was limited to adult male landowners and where Socrates was sentenced to death for thought crimes. But yeah, Athens was democratic. Some Athenians could vote on everything from major laws to who served as their generals. But the Spartans didn't save Athenian democracy. They actively kicked the crap out of it. And not just because Persian victory at Thermopylae let the Persians burn Athens down. 3 years after Thermopylae, Sparta gave up on fighting the Persians. Athens had to carry on without their help. Since Athens was just one city, they formed an epic alliance with the rest of Greece. And it pushed the Persians back. But then Sparta got jealous of Athens' new importance, so Sparta started decades of brutal wars against Athens. And when Sparta started losing to Athens, in what's called the Corinthian War, they figured out the perfect way to turn the tide against those darned Athenian democrats, which was to team up on Athens with Persia, which means those guys' descendants were allies. And they crushed Athens. Athens never recovered, and Sparta let Persia manipulate Greek politics to serve Persian interests for years to come. But Alex, you say, how did we get Western civilization if Athens got squished? Well, a lot of factors, but one of the biggest factors was good Persian governance that strengthened Macedonia, a backwater territory north of Greece. Macedonia thrived while Sparta and Athens headbutted, but that backfired for Persia, because a thriving Macedonia rose up and conquered the entire Persian Empire, plus Greece and a little of India, thanks to Alexander the Great. Since Persian systems were the most effective government Alexander knew of, he copy and pasted them across his even larger empire. After he died, his empire came apart, which cleared the Mediterranean for the Alexander-imitating, culture-absorbing Roman Empire. Rome fell, the Dark Ages happened, that led to Roman-influenced European empires that colonized North and South America, which means Persia influenced America's traditions a whole lot more than Sparta's angry slavery town ever did. And though the Persians had faults, they weren't freedom-devouring monster gods, despite what you've been told. by America's blue screen bullshit assemblers, novelty gun hat makers, and absolute finest muscle toucher-uppers.